It's getting crazy. It's getting spooky real fast. Very, very fast. I told y'all, people have had enough. All of y'all in the Indiana Fever organization who have been lying about this girl injury, not being transparent, and all these things that the fans are feeling, the fans are speaking back. They do not appreciate it. They feel scammed, they feel lied to, and they feel used.
What if I told you $1 billion asset was being managed by a group of clowns? That the most valuable player in the entire sports league was caught in a web of lies so transparent, it's almost insulting. This isn't a theory anymore. It's a full-blown credibility crisis, and it's centered on the Indiana Fever, head coach Stephanie White, and their catastrophic handling of superstar Caitlin Clark's injury. The story they sold us is falling apart in real time, and the fans aren't just angry. They're collecting evidence, and this evidence points to something far more serious than a simple sports injury.
Urge DOJ and FTC to investigate WNBA's misleading practices. Wow. So we are here now. And what's crazy about all of this is that, guys, this is I'm not going to come on here and say that they're going to lose, because if there was an investigation going into this team, they're not going to lose this investigation. Oh, they're going to win. Whoever is representing Caitlin.
We're talking about potential investigations, deceptive practices, and a betrayal of trust that could redefine how this entire organization operates. Stick around, because this story is about to explode. And before we dive down this rabbit hole, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, because you do not want to miss what comes next. It all started with a simple, PR-friendly story. The narrative from the Indiana Fever was clear and controlled. Caitlin Clark, the phenom rookie who took the world by storm, suffered a groin injury, and then, in a separate incident, she had a bit of bad luck. The official line was at around August 7th. Clark suffered a new setback, a bone bruise on her ankle during a private workout. It sounded tidy. It sounded like an unfortunate but isolated accident, a piece of random bad luck for a player who just couldn't catch a break.
The Caitlin Clark injury situation is officially a mess because not only is there not more clarity, there's more confusion about what her timeline could be. And that's coming on the heels of it seeming to be pretty clear when Clark would return to the court, or about when she would return to the court. It was said on the ESPN broadcast on August 12th that Stephanie White hoped Clark would be back in practice this week. Open portion of practice, Clark is not seen. And Stephanie White afterwards said it's status quo until Clark is back at practice.
But there's one gigantic problem with this neat and clean story. The timeline doesn't just have holes, it's completely shredded. Because on that very same date, August 7th, Caitlin Clark was spotted by fans in Phoenix. And the footage is undeniable. She's not in a boot. She's not limping. She's not showing any visible signs of discomfort whatsoever. She's walking to the airport casually, smooth as anything, carrying a designer bag like she hasn't got a care in the world. This wasn't someone who had just suffered a significant ankle injury hours before. The visual proof directly contradicts the story the Fever front office was trying to sell.
Right? I know there's never been a direct timeline, but all the signs seem to point in the direction of Clark returning soon. Even Natasha Howard saying, "See you soon, CC." Now it's like, wait and see. And there's further information coming out that Clark suffered a bit of an ankle injury in the midst of her recovery process. Did that hinder her return? One reporter saying yes, another reporter is saying no. Bottom line is, we need to know a little bit more. We don't need Caitlin Clark's in-depth medical report, but it's fair for fans to wonder if the Fever and the league's biggest star is going to return to the floor this season, or what the chances are. And she's been out of action for 5 weeks, so it's not as if some patience hasn't been.
So the immediate question becomes, what really happened? If it wasn't a workout on August 7th, then when did she get hurt? And why did they feel the need to lie about it? This was just the beginning of the timeline turmoil, because the confusion around Clark's return date has been a masterclass in incompetence. Initially, after her original groin injury, the outlook was optimistic. The word from the team was day-to-day. Fans were told she'd be ramping up to practice soon, with a potential return by the end of August. The hope was tangible. Then, on an ESPN broadcast on August 12th, head coach Stephanie White herself fueled that hope even further. She went on national television and stated that she hoped Clark would be back at practice that very week.
And the craziest thing about this last groin injury with Caitlin Clark is how it's been covered. The day after she had the groin injury, she was listed as day-to-day. And then a couple weeks after that, then she was listed to being out indefinitely. Now, ESPN had August 12th as the circled return date for Caitlin Clark to get back onto the court. And just yesterday, she was listed as a game time decision for today's game against the Dallas Wings. And then after practice yesterday, Coach Stephanie White basically came out and said, like, no, Caitlin Clark hasn't even been practicing. So they changed it from a game time decision to her being out.
This sent a shockwave of excitement through the fan base. People circled dates on their calendars. They bought tickets for upcoming games, believing they were about to witness the triumphant return of their hero. But then, reality came crashing down. At the next open practice, Clark was nowhere to be seen. And when reporters asked Stephanie White about it, her tone had completely changed. Suddenly, it was status quo. It was a vague, she'll be back when she's back. The promised return had vanished into thin air. The goalposts had been moved without any explanation.
They were lying about her injury. As far as like the severity of it, I think it's a really bad injury. I think when they rushed her back that one time, I think she hurt it even more and it pushed the timeline back.
Trying to come back and come back quickly. She needs to make sure that she's 100%. Her competitor wants to play. We're prioritizing her long-term health and wellness is the most important thing.
As bad as it might sound, I think it might be like a season-ending level type of injury, and they're hoping to get in the playoffs and they can somehow get her during the playoffs.
And then another layer was added to the mystery. Reports began to surface about a second injury, this ankle issue that had somehow occurred during her recovery. But even those reports were conflicting. One source would say it was a minor setback. Another would claim it was more serious. The entire communication strategy dissolved into chaos. Instead of clarity, fans were given more questions. Instead of transparency, they were given a runaround. But the fans are always watching. And in the age of social media, nothing stays hidden for long.
You guys have said Caitlin Clark was day-to-day for I don't know how long. You guys have fabricated timelines on her injury many times throughout this season. And the people have just flat out had enough. And it's gone so far.
As the official story began to unravel, people started looking back through footage, searching for any clue that could explain what truly happened to Caitlin Clark. And they found something. A clip from a game earlier in August began to circulate. In it, Indiana Fever assistant coach Brianne January is seen on the court. And in a moment that seemed innocuous at the time, she takes a step back and her foot comes down directly on top of Caitlin Clark's left foot.
Got this video right here that a lot of you have already seen. I just saw it in the last couple of days of Caitlin getting stepped on by a coach right there on the left.
Stepped on by the coach, and I think she's going to be all right based upon the grin on her face. But
the left foot, the one that's got the issue, she got stepped on. And today, I'm not even going to say Indiana Fever fans, Caitlin Clark fans are crashing out at a different level. And I don't blame them.
Clark's reaction is subtle but telling. A slight wince, a shift in her posture. At the time, it was just a blip. But now, with the team talking about a bone bruise on that exact same left ankle, the clip takes on a completely new and sinister meaning. The incident reportedly happened around August 9th, but the team claimed the workout injury happened on August 7th. The dates are already conflicting. This has led to a burning new theory. What if the real story is that Caitlin Clark was injured by her own coaching staff during a game? And what if the workout injury narrative was fabricated entirely to cover up that embarrassing and potentially negligent truth? It's a theory that transforms a situation from a simple sports injury into a scandal of negligence and a deliberate cover-up.
Everybody's been hanging on. And even worse, everybody's been spending money on this team, which looks like a damn scheme at this point. The Indiana Fever know people have been spending money on tickets and travel and blah, 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 thinking that Caitlin Clark was her anticipated comeback. People tuning in and showing up at games, they need to understand that was because the idea, the aura that Caitlin Clark was coming back to lead this team into the playoff.
Perhaps the most telling sign that something is deeply wrong is the behavior of Caitlin Clark herself. Normally vibrant, authentic, and engaging with the media, Clark has virtually disappeared. When she does appear, it's been described as robotic. She repeats the same sanitized, PR-approved talking points over and over again. Working hard, feeling good, just a bit of unlucky timing. The phrases lack her usual spark. They sound less like genuine updates from a competitor, and more like lines fed to her by a team intern tasked with damage control. This shift hasn't gone unnoticed. Her fans know her. They can tell the difference between authentic Caitlin and the version being presented now.
Indiana Fever's got $1 billion entity on their team. $1 billion damn dollars. And they're a bunch of clowns, a bunch of bozos. You guys look completely incompetent and unprofessional. The way this has been handled, oh, it's a joke. It's a joke. Look, and look, they can't say anything about conspiracy theories. You're complicit in creating them because you won't be open and you won't be honest.
It feels forced. It feels controlled. It feels like she's being silenced within her own story, forced to be complicit in a narrative she knows isn't true. This is the ultimate betrayal. The team isn't just lying to the fans. They're using their own star player as a puppet to sell those lies. It's a strategy that has torched their credibility entirely. Because if you can't trust the word of your franchise player, who can you trust? This leads us to the multi-million-dollar question. Why? Why go through all this trouble? Why create an elaborate web of lies and contradictions?
This practice isn't just disappointing, it's deceptive. Fans invested their hard-earned money in tickets, streaming packages, and merchandise under the belief that they were being given honest information. Instead, it appears coordinated efforts were made between the league and team communications to present a facade of hopeful updates, masking the true status of a beloved player's injury.
The answer, many believe, is as simple as it is cynical: money. Caitlin Clark isn't just a player, she's an economic engine. Her name on the ticket stub guarantees a sellout. Her presence on the court sends TV ratings into the stratosphere. Her jersey flies off the shelves. She is the single biggest driver of revenue the WNBA has ever seen. So, what happens if fans know she's done for season? Ticket sales for Fever games would plummet. National TV ratings would collapse. Sponsorship deals could be reevaluated. The financial incentive to keep hope alive, to keep fans believing she might just return for the next game, is enormous. And fans are now openly accusing the Fever of engaging in what they call a scheme.
To say fans felt excited when they purchased tickets, believing they'll watch Caitlin Clark shine on the court. However, that excitement turned to disappointment as misleading injuries kept fueling false hopes that she had played the WNBA. And hold up, damn, is they finna get a for line? Is they finna get a for line to the fans? Oh my God, hold up, the WNBA and Indiana Fever Indiana Fever have repeatedly engaged in what seems to be a strategic ploy to drive ticket sale and merchandise sales by suggesting that Caitlin Clark return was on the horizon. Holy-ish right now, bro. Oh my God, it's about to get red.
They believe the team strategically dropped hopeful hints about her imminent return to drive ticket sales, merchandise purchases, and broadcast viewers under false pretenses. People planned trips, booked flights, and reserved hotels based on the expectation that they would see Caitlin Clark play. Now, they're left with expensive receipts and a whole lot of disappointment. To many, this feels like the culmination of a pattern that started the day Caitlin Clark entered the league. She arrived as a tidal wave of change, bringing unprecedented attention and a new generation of fans. And almost immediately, she seemed to be met with resistance from within the league itself, from veterans making dismissive comments about her game, to opponents playing against her with a visibly heightened and physical aggression, to referees seemingly swallowing their whistles when she was fouled. There's been a persistent narrative that she has to earn her stripes and that the physical punishment is just part of the game.
Lawsuits. Fans, y'all, we might have a case here. We might have a case to sue not only the Indiana Fever, but the WNBA for misleading us, having us thinking Caitlin Clark was going to come back, because we all remember when Stephanie White was on ESPN, she stated Caitlin Clark was on her way to come back and practice and get ready to make a return of a lifetime to the Indiana Fever. Oh, yeah, she said that her win around the 12th. Well, judging off your sources, if she got hurt around the 7th, you knew prior to you going to ESPN that Caitlin Clark wasn't coming back when you said she was going to come back. You're lying. You're lying and you're misleading, and it's looking real spooky. And I'm happy the fans is standing up.
But this latest chapter feels different. This isn't coming from opponents. It's coming from her own organization. The lies, the misdirection, the potential negligence, it all feeds into a larger, more disturbing picture, a culture of disrespect surrounding the league's brightest star. It leads to the darkest question of all. Could this be intentional? Could there be elements within the league, or even her own team, that are uncomfortable with her meteoric rise and are, either through incompetence or deliberate action, sabotaging her second season before it even really begins? This theory, while extreme, is gaining traction because it connects dots that many feel have been ignored for too long. The transition from celebrated college athlete to professional superstar is never easy, but Clark's path has seemed uniquely fraught with obstacles that extend beyond normal competitive rivalry. It's the strange combination of silence and conflicting information that fuels the speculation. When a player of this magnitude vanishes from the spotlight with no clear, consistent explanation, it creates a vacuum, and in that vacuum, doubt and suspicion grow exponentially. Some wonder if there is a deeper institutional reluctance to fully embrace a player who has so dramatically shifted the league's cultural and economic center of gravity almost overnight. This isn't just about basketball anymore. It's about power, control, and the uncomfortable disruption of the established order. The idea that her own team might be the source of the problem is the most painful scenario for fans to consider. Yet the bizarre handling of her injury situation makes it a question that can no longer be dismissed. The shift from external adversity to internal confusion is what makes the situation so uniquely damaging. Fans would accept opponents playing her physically. That's a backhanded compliment to her skill. They could even rationalize questionable officiating as a league-wide growing pain. But being misled by the very organization tasked with protecting their investment, the franchise player herself feels like the ultimate betrayal. It suggests a fractured environment where her long-term health and career might not be the absolute top priority. The speculation now points to a possible desire to control the narrative around her at all costs, even if it means obscuring the truth. Was there pressure to downplay an injury caused within the organization to avoid public scrutiny and embarrassment? Is the confusing timeline a result of trying to manage fan and sponsor expectations to protect revenue rather than providing transparent updates? This moves beyond simple mismanagement into the realm of a calculated strategy, one that prioritizes the organization's image over the well-being of its star asset. The silence from the league office on the matter is only amplifying these concerns, making many wonder just how deep the rabbit hole goes. The consequences for this deception are no longer just theoretical. Angry and feeling defrauded, fans are now invoking the names of government agencies. They're calling for investigations into the Indiana Fever and the WNBA for what they allege are misleading and deceptive consumer practices. The argument is simple. If you sell a product, a ticket, a broadcast, a jersey, with the implied promise that a star player will be involved, and you knowingly conceal the fact that she will not be, you have engaged in false advertising. This is the territory of the Federal Trade Commission. Furthermore, legal minds are now discussing potential for class action lawsuits. A group of fans who spent money based on the Fever's misleading statements could potentially band together to sue for damages. The reputational damage is already done. Sponsors who invest millions to be associated with Clark's positive image will not want to be tied to a scandal of dishonesty and negligence. If this story continues to grow, the Indiana Fever won't be facing a sports controversy. They'll be facing a full-blown legal and corporate crisis that could cost them far more than just games. So where does that leave us? We're left with two possibilities, and both are damning for the Indiana Fever. The first is breathtaking incompetence, that the organization is so poorly run that it cannot keep its own story straight, cannot manage the injury of its most important asset, and has no coherent communication strategy. The second and far more serious possibility is a deliberate cover-up, a choice to lie about the nature and timing of an injury, to protect the organization from embarrassment over a negligent incident, or to artificially prop up revenue streams by selling false hope. Either scenario is a fireable offense for a leadership team. In any other professional league, a mishandling of this magnitude involving a player of this stature would have already resulted in resignations or terminations. The fact that it hasn't only adds more fuel to the fire. Caitlin Clark deserves better. The fans who have supported this league through its explosive growth deserve better. This is more than a sports story. It's a story about truth, trust, and how a billion-dollar dream can be threatened by a house of lies. What do you think? Is this a cover-up waiting for a federal investigation? Or is it just an epic display of incompetence? Let us know your verdict in the comments below. And if you want us to keep digging into stories the mainstream sports media won't touch, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. We'll see you in the next one.